All right. I know people are entering. I'm just going to give everyone a quick, 1 minute to just get in. Takes a little bit of time. So welcome to everyone entering the webinar today. I'm just going to give everyone a minute. Grab a cup of water, grab some coffee. We're going to have a great time together. So, awesome. Okay, I see people are still kind of trickling in. I think I'm going to go ahead and just start with some quick intros. I want to make sure we can take full advantage of our time together today. So thank you so much to ADAC and Business of Home for hosting Digital Day. I am your expert for the next hour. My name is Manpreet Kaura, and I'm just so excited to have all of you joining me today. So let's go ahead and get to it, shall we? Okay. And I'm just gonna do a quick check on participants. Yeah, I think, all right, I think we're pretty good to go. I'm just going to start off with an intro of myself, and that'll give more people a little bit of time to get in. But, we've got a pretty jam-packed session, so let's make sure we can get through all the content together. All right, so welcome. I'm going to be going over search engine optimization, also known as SEO, with all of you for the next hour. My name is Manpreet Kaura. I am a business and marketing advisor. I work in digital marketing, and I work with small creative businesses on how to better optimize their marketing engine and marketing strategy. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you a little bit more about search engine optimization, a phrase that gets often thrown around and can be quite intimidating as well. And so my hope is with today's workshop that you'll be able to leave feeling like you have a better understanding of what SEO is, what are some best practices, and how you can approach SEO for your design business. I do want to apologize. It seems that there is some construction happening outside my apartment at the moment. So do you all hear drilling? I just want to make sure that it's not too much of a nuisance for everyone. If anyone can say, I don't. Oh, great. Light. Okay. If it's light, I appreciate that. That's the reason, I wanted to make sure I use my headphones because hopefully it will cancel out any annoying noises for all of you. If you do hear really loud drilling, I am so sorry, but I promise that the content is going to be so worth it. So let's go ahead and just continue going on because the world continues to go on around us. All right, so session objectives. So during today's workshop, we're going to be understanding what the role is of SEO when we talk about lead generation. We're going to be identifying keywords for your business. We'll be learning about what meta descriptions, title tags are, and how you can write them for your website. And we'll also be ending with a great, I feel that oftentimes with a lot of these workshops, you can learn a lot of skills, but you need to know how to measure them, and you need to learn how to measure the impact of your efforts. So we're going to learn how to measure the impact of your SEO. And so throughout today, please feel free if you have questions to put them in the chat. And I will try to make sure we get to them at the end. But with that, let's go ahead and let's get started. I do believe we also have the Q&A function available. If We have, do we have a preference of Q&A versus chat from the team at Business of Home? Do you have a preference? I think chat is fine. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's put all the questions in the chat. We will try to make sure we get to them at the end. But I promise my goal is to try to answer those questions as we go through the content. All right. So what is SEO? This is one of those things where it's a term that's thrown around quite a bit, but really to be able to fully understand and take advantage of SEO, we need to know what it is in the first place. SEO is essentially the idea of being able to optimize your website so that you show up in search results. SEO is essentially you trying to tweak different aspects of the way that your website is constructed, the copy of your website, and the way search engines essentially detect the content of your website, so that when someone is looking for your service or looking for products that you sell, that you are getting in front of their eyes. And that's the thing, one of the things that I think that's so important that we understand when it comes to SEO is that at the end of the day, search engines like Google, their customer is not you. Their customer is the person who's actually searching for a product, right? So if their customer is a person searching for a product, just like when a friend asks us for a recommendation, we want to make sure that we are giving them the best possible recommendation. So the same thing goes for Google. They want to give the people who are searching for an item using their tool the best possible results, the best possible recommendations. And so your goal as a website owner is to make sure that you're able to provide Google with the parameters that they need to understand who exactly would find the content on your website very useful. So when we think about SEO, I want you to really think about who is my customer, who will find my services useful, and that's how we have to think about the content we create for our websites and how we optimize our websites using SEO. All right. So the way that Google essentially decides who's going to want to look at this content is by crawling your page. So we've got an algorithm that essentially is going to crawl your website. I love calling it crawlers, but they're going to crawl your website. And essentially, they are going to be looking for various pieces of information. All right. So some of those pieces of information is essentially the speed of your website. Is your website mobile friendly? What kind of content are you sharing? How long do people stay on your website? How many pages of your website does someone visit? All of this information is being essentially detected by the algorithm and helping Google understand what is the quality of your website, how likely are people to engage with your website, and how likely are people who are sent to your website, how likely are they to actually stay there and continue to explore content on your site? So all these metrics really do influence how you rank in search results, right? So the term that's often thrown around is SERP. And SERP is essentially a term for search engine results page. So the search engine's result page is whenever you go ahead and you go in Google and you type something up and you're searching for it, the results that you see on that page, on the next page, are going to be your search engine results. All right, so you're gonna type in decorative throw pillows. Well, the results you get, those are your search engine results. And so that is the search engine results page. The goal that we often hear in the space of SEO is that people are trying to get onto that first and second page of search engine results for any given keyword or key phrase. And so when we talk about when we talk about SEO, that's kind of usually the end goal that people are looking for. They're trying to get onto those first few pages of the results. And so the way you do that is by optimizing your site. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means and how you can do that for your business. So the other thing that has become very synonymous with SEO is the term keywords. And I think that it's become so synonymous that people throw around the phrase keywords or the word keywords without actually knowing what that means. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what keywords are, why they matter, and why you need to think beyond keywords when it comes to SEO. So when we talk about the phrase keywords, these are essentially words that really, in a very short manner, symbolize or tell someone what kind of content you are sharing, right? These are words that essentially capture the essence of your brand in a few words or a single word. And we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that keywords fall into three main categories. Okay, you've got branded keywords, you've got non-branded keywords, and you have long tail keywords. Branded keywords are essentially keywords that contain the name of your business. Non-branded keywords are keywords that are relevant to your business but don't contain the name of your business. Long tail keywords are going to be phrases. They are words basically woven together to describe the type of products and the type of services that you have to offer. So if we think about keywords and we think about your keyword strategy, the way you want to think about it is, how do the keywords that I care about really fall into these three buckets? But I don't want you to ever get hung up on keywords, all right? Keyword examples we're going to go into on the next slide, but I think it's really important to understand the foundation of how we think about keywords when we're talking about SEO. So again, you've got branded, which are keywords that contain the name of your business. You've got non-branded, which are keywords that don't contain the name of your business, but are very much describe the type of products or services you offer. And then long tail keywords that are very specific and words woven together to really capture what you do and what you offer exactly. Okay, so now let's see how this pans out in the customer journey. So keywords, as we were saying, branded, non-branded, and long tail. Well, they also fall into three categories of intention. You've got your low intent keywords, your medium intent keywords, and your high intent keywords. We'll notice that branded keywords tend to fall in the high intent category. Long tail keywords also tend to fall more in that high intent category. Low intent, medium intent keywords tend to be a lot of those non-branded keywords that we were talking about earlier. So an example of a low intent keyword would be something like a wooden desk, like the desk I have in front of me right now that I'm presenting on. Medium intent keyword would be the kind of style of the desk, right? Like a mid-century desk. Awesome. Okay, I've got a little general idea of what kind of style I'm looking for. And finally, a high intent keyword would be a mid-century desk by West Elm, right? I know exactly who I want to get that mid-century desk from. Now, what's important to notice here is that when we talk about low, medium, and high intent, we're also looking at search volumes and we're looking at conversion rate, okay? So the lower intent keywords tend to be very broad. They're like these broad brush strokes that you've created, and you know, like this is what I sell, right? Like a black dress. If you are a fashion brand and you sell a black dress, right? Pretty broad term. A lot of people sell black dresses. However, the more specific you get into what kind of black dress that is going to go into the higher intent category. So low intent keywords tend to have a really high search volume, okay? But they tend to have a low conversion rate. The reason we say there's a high search volume is people are just kind of browsing, right? They're like, oh, I need to get a black dress. I'm just going to search black dress and see what the options are out there, right? So they're still in the discovery phase of trying to figure out what exactly they're looking for. So you've got a higher search volume, but a lower conversion rate because they're still trying to figure out what they want exactly. Medium intent keywords, people have a general idea of what they're looking for. It tends to have a slightly lower search volume than those low intent keywords, but it tends to have a slightly higher conversion rate. People have a general idea of what they're looking for. High intent keywords are going to have a really high conversion rate, but a significantly lower search volume. And that's okay. So when we talk about our SEO strategy and when we talk about keywords, I want you to really think about how keywords come together, how they can be woven together. And even in a long tail phrase, you can have a lot of low intent and high intent concepts coming together, right? So I'm going to look at that Seema Krish example that's here. Is we've got contemporary textiles, right? Contemporary textiles is a pretty broad phrase. Contemporary textiles for upholstery is a little bit more specific. Now, contemporary hand-painted textiles for upholstery by Seema Krish is a super, super long tail, high intent keyword phrase. So I want to break down that phrase a little bit, all right? So hand-painted textiles, I would say that that's a pretty medium to high intent keyword phrase that we see over here. I'm just gonna tell you this, right? So you've got hand-painted textiles, you've got a medium to high intent keyword, long tail keyword, and we pinpoint who the designer is, and that's Seema Krish. So now we've got some branding in there. And then the fact that it's contemporary and what it's for is upholstery. We basically have created a very high intent keyword phrase that within it, we've got some low intent keywords, we've got some medium intent keywords. So when you're thinking about keywords, I want you to really think about how words come together and weave together to create concepts that really speak to your brand and your business. The other thing here that I think is just very, very important that we realize is oftentimes when people talk about SEO, they just stick to the concept of keywords. They're like, these are all the keywords that people are searching for. And you go into these very broad brushstrokes. And I want you to realize it's important to know who your target customer is, because you need to speak to your target customer when you're thinking about keywords. Oftentimes when we think about keywords, we're kind of like, oh, these are general keywords that seem to resonate with the type of products we sell. Kind of going back to that black dress example, right? Like if you are just a brand, you're like, this is my black dress that I sell. Well, what about the black dress that you sell is so unique? Similarly, what about the decorative pillows that you sell is so unique? What about your design business is so unique? So it's really important to know who your customer is, because weaving that into how you think about your SEO and the keywords that you use is just so, so, so valuable. The other thing that I think is also incredibly important to recognize is that SEO goes beyond keywords. Don't get super hung up on just looking at keywords. Keywords alone are not going to improve your search engine results. They're definitely important, and please do not leave this thinking that you shouldn't be doing any keyword optimization. They're definitely important, but they're not the only thing that's going to pull the needle forward. You need to think about the whole picture and how every aspect of your online experience comes together and complements each other and builds this beautiful experience for your customers, and therefore more engaging experience, which will therefore help your SEO and help your rank in search engine results. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so before we go a little further, I just want, one of the common questions I get at this point in the presentation is like, how do I even identify the keywords? And there are tools out there that can help you with that. One of the tools I like to use is Google Keyword Planner. It's super easy. It's free. It's part of the Google AdWords suite. But another quick and dirty way to just figure out, like, is this a keyword that makes sense for my business, is just Google the keyword, right? So say you're writing you're writing some content for your website and you're like, what should I call this? Should I call them decorative pillows? Should I call it throw pillows? Should I call it cushion covers? What should I call it? What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go on Google, and you're going to want to actually just search that keyword, search the keyword phrase, and see what kind of shows up. Is it relevant to my business? Is it relevant to what I'm selling? If so, then you probably have yourself a good phrase to go off of. So this is a quick and dirty way to quickly just do a quick spot check of, like, am I on the right track with the keywords that I'm thinking about? But if you want to get really analytical, I definitely recommend using Google Keyword Planner. I do have a toolkit of how to do that. And I believe I will be getting, I will be able to send everyone an email within the next week with some tools and all that good stuff. So you will have that for sure. Okay. So now let's take things back and let's go beyond the keywords. Let's talk about on-page SEO. All right. So on-page SEO is essentially the science of optimizing your website's content. All right. So one of the things that I often ask people who are like, well, I feel like I should be able to do my SEO. And it's pretty easy. Just tell me what I need to do. I always tell people you need to be able to feel comfortable with writing website copy. Every piece of content you put on your website, you want to think about, how is this helping my business? How is this helping search engines understand the kind of services I have to offer or products I have to offer? And how is this helping my customer, right? We have to remember, I think oftentimes when people are doing SEO, it's like, okay, I just need to make the search engine happy. And that's going to be all that needs to happen. Well, the search engine can be happy and send people to your website. But if the people aren't happy, the search engine's not going to keep doing that. All right. So you're going to have to make sure that there's an art to both satisfying search engines and satisfying your customers. So really, at the end of the day, you want to speak to your customer, and the rest of it will just come through the art of just copywriting, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about on-page SEO. On-page SEO, again, is going to be the copy and the content you put on your website. The cool thing about more copy, more content on your website is it keeps your website fresh. It keeps Google being like, oh, I need to go back. There's more stuff to archive on this site that I haven't archived already. It's going to help with boosting your on-site customer engagement. The more content you have on your site, the more pages people have to explore. And for designers, creating portfolio sections of your website is going to be so important, and constantly adding new content onto your portfolio is a great way to continue to boost your on-page SEO and boost your website content and keep things fresh. All right. So the more content you put on your website, you're going to get a boost in on-site customer engagement. The more time people spend on your website, the more Google thinks, oh, this website must have really valuable content. We need to send people there. The other thing that's really valuable with having more content on your site is that it helps you get more links. People link to different pages of your site. The more people link to your site, the more Google sees it as a credible site. So really think about, how can you get links to your website on different avenues, because that really helps your SEO. So when we talk about SEO and we talk about any given page of your website, right? So every page of your website needs to be optimized when we talk about SEO. If you are a business that offers services, and you have a portfolio, every single portfolio page, you need to optimize it, all right? If you are a business that sells products, every single product page, every other page of your website, got to optimize it. And when I talk about optimize, I'm usually talking about a few key things. I'm talking about your title tags. I'm talking about your meta description. I'm talking about your alt text. And I'm talking about any copy that's on that page. We're going to go into each of those, and we're first going to start with title tags. So title tags are essentially the header of any page of your website. When you go ahead and search for a product or a service in Google, you will see on the search engine results page, you will see often the name of a link with a description below it. And this is that clickable link that people click on. All right. So what do you want to do with title tags? Title tags are essentially every single page of your website needs to have a title tag, and that title tag needs to be different for every single page of your website. Whenever you're talking about the home page of your website, you start with the name of your business at the beginning, and then you give a quick snapshot of what is your business. Okay, what do you have to offer? Okay, and in that snapshot, you want to capture this core keyword phrase that is really relevant to your business. So I'm going to give you this example. So with Entre Project, for example, Entre Project's the name of the business. We put that at the beginning. Again, that's only on home pages. We've put that at the beginning, and then we've put a colon, and we've talked about sustainable home decor and ethical fashion. Okay, sustainable home decor is the keyword phrase that they really want to prioritize for their business, and ethical fashion is that secondary keyword phrase that they want to optimize for their business. Sustainable home decor is at the beginning because that is the more important keyword phrase that they want to prioritize. So when it comes to title tags, the location of where the keyword phrase is matters. The closer you have it to the beginning of the title tag, the better it is, because that's how Google sees that this is the most this is the most important piece of content or most important keyword to understand what is the content of this website. Okay, so as I said earlier, the name of your business goes at the beginning of the title tag on the home page. On all other pages of your website, you start with whatever the phrase is that you want to optimize for, and then you put a dash and the name of your business at the end. Okay. So with title tags, you want to be 70 characters or less. This is very important. If you go beyond 70 characters, you're going to get cut off at 55, and you're going to see a ... And that's no fun, because then you probably won't be able to get all that fun information that you want people to see in front of them. Okay, so that's the title tag. Title tags do matter when it comes to how search engines perceive archive your site and crawl your site. So title tags are very important for search engines. The next aspect is going to be your meta description. That's the copy that comes right below the title tag. So the meta description doesn't actually impact search results. However, it does impact the likelihood that someone will click on a link. Okay, so when you think about your meta description, I think it's really important that we recognize that those meta descriptions are in fact important, and every meta description, every page of your website should have both the title tag and a meta description. That meta description should include a call to action. So when we say that the meta description helps with the likelihood of someone actually clicking on a link, I mean literally, people, if they're reading that, you want to give them an incentive to actually click on the link, all right? And so in Artha Collection's case, they say explore our collection. That is their CTA. The character limit that you want to go for with meta descriptions is 150 to 160. There is, information around the web that's basically like, oh, you can go more than 160, you can go to 240, or you can go to 220. I personally, or 260 is another one I've heard. I personally prefer to stick to 160 because I have seen that even when people go longer, their meta descriptions can get cut off. So always stick to that 150 to 160 range. It is a sweet spot. You can go less than 150, just do not go over 160. Okay. So give me just a moment. I'm going to take a sip. So I'm going to do a quick exercise with all of you. Typically, if it was a smaller group, I'd say, I want you to do this yourself, but we're going to do it together. So Rifle Paper Co. At one point when I was, when I first started doing some of my SEO presentations, Rifle Paper Co. really did not have, it seems like anyone had done their SEO. And this was, the top is exactly a screenshot of what their homepage SEO was like. And I decided that I wanted to use that as an example for this slide deck. So recommendations of ways that I would change their SEO. I went through and I read kind of their about page at the time that I made this deck. And what I read, or at the time that I created this example for my presentations, and I read that they talk about a lot about being a very whimsical stationery brand. So I was like, okay, whimsical stationery, that seems like a great concept that is like right in line with what they're doing. And they also consider themselves a lifestyle brand. So cool. I started, and so the second part is my recommendation. I did Rifle Paper Co., whimsical stationery, and lifestyle brand. And then for their meta description, I wrote shop Rifle Paper Co. for stationery, textiles, and gifts featuring iconic whimsy. Our vibrant illustrations brighten any day or space. Free shipping on $50 or more. So I've got a clear call to action. I've got shop Rifle Paper Co. And then I've given a little snapshot of what the business is, what they have to offer, the type of products that they sell. And then I give them just a little incentive to make sure that they actually click on the link with the free shipping on $50 or more. Okay. So when you're thinking about for your design business, what your title tag and meta description should look like for any page of your website, please really be creative. Think about what is it that I have to offer. And that is a great place to start, right? Like really capturing your voice in your meta description is awesome. Make sure that you capture what the key phrases that you really want to optimize for in that title tag. Okay. So now let's talk about, earlier I said, if we are to optimize any given page of your website, we want to look at your title tag, your meta description, and your alt text. So your alt text is essentially how you optimize the images of your website. Every single image of your site should have an alt text. This is essentially a way, so Google, you have Google search happens in two different ways. You have text-based search and then you have image-based search. In order for your images to show up in image-based search, you want to make sure you provide alt text. They're going to show up regardless, but you want to be able to control what searches people have and when your images show up, right? So to do that, you have to tell Google, okay, this is what this image is. This is what people are going to be looking for when they want to, when I want you to show my image. The other thing that I will say here is it's important to recognize that, especially for design businesses, when you have portfolio pages, when you have a lot of images on your website, images slow down sites. So if you aren't, or please do not upload full res images onto your website. It will slow down your website and Google will not like it and will not send people to your site. It will hurt your SEO. So you want to make sure that you're mobile optimized and that you can share images on your site, but make sure that you are taking the time to really lower down the file size before uploading it to your site. Do not upload full-size images onto your website. It's just going to hurt your website and really slow it down. A tool I really like using is called tinypng.com. You can get a paid account. You can upload full res images and it will spit out web optimized images for you so that you can put them into your website. I really do like tinypng. For many of you, if you have like photographers and you know how to do the whole image condensing size shindig, awesome. For me, I just find it really easy to just throw a bunch of images in there and have it spit out web optimized images for me. I will say that it's super, super important to make sure that you define your alt text or your image tag on every image. This is on, you can do this on Squarespace, you can do this on Shopify, whatever, WordPress, whatever platform you're on, there is an ability to do that. The example I'm sharing with you here is from a Shopify website. Images across your website. I'm talking about blog post images, product pages, website content pages, portfolio pages, all of those. Images need to have an alt text. They're going to help you essentially have your images show up in search results. A well-written alt text describes the image and contains the keywords you're optimizing that page for. So really take the time to think about that. Okay, what does a well-optimized web page contain? A well-optimized web page is going to contain your title tag, your meta description, your URL. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people just like copy pages, and then the URL is essentially copy/homepage/v2. Right? Do not do that. Actually optimize the URL. If it is the about page, make it say about. Okay. So every page of your website, optimize your URL. Make sure you set your title tag, you set your meta description. All images have a defined alt text. And finally, you're going to want to be extremely, extremely careful about making sure that you are actually thinking about the keywords throughout the copy of your website. Okay, so a well-optimized web page is also going to have a really nice combination of content that contains, well-produced content that contains the keywords that you're trying to optimize for. Think about what your design philosophy is. Make sure you weave that into the content of your site across your website. Let your personality and your business's unique value add show. Do not let search engines scare you from letting your personality come out or scare you from letting your business's unique value add show out. Because the more you create content that's uniquely you, the more it's going to also help your search results. Because Google is going to say, oh, people actually really like what this person has to say, or people really spend a lot of time on this website. It must have really valuable content. Let's make sure we send more people there. Again, remember, you are not Google's customer. The people searching for your services or your products are Google's customer, and they only want to show the best possible recommendations to their customers. And you want to make sure that you offer those recommendations through the content and copy of your website. So before I go into questions, I do want to just give a few more tips and tricks, all right? So one of the things that I often love to tell people is, header tags matter. Make sure that you put, you set your H1s, H2s, H3s. The way that those are is it essentially is how you break up the content of your website. It gives Google an understanding of the hierarchy of your content. So your H1 is essentially there's only one H1 on any website, on any page of a website, not on the website as a whole. On any page of a website, you only have one H1. And that H1 is going to usually be at the top of the page. It's a quick snapshot of this is what this page is. And then you're going to break up the rest of the copy between H2s and H3s. Again, that's hierarchy of the content of your website. And the headers should really incorporate the keywords that you're trying to optimize your page for. The reason it's important to break up the copy is people don't read long blocks of text. People don't read, period. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's the truth. So the way that you make your content easy to digest is by really breaking it apart into little sections and bite-sized chunks so that you can guide people's attention. So think about any section of your website. If you're breaking up the copy, your H2 or your H3 is essentially going to be giving people a snapshot of what that body text is in that section. All right. And now let's take it a step further. As I recommended earlier, please, please, please decrease image file size. Super, super, super important, okay? Content is king is what the classic phrase that people use. I'm gonna argue it's content is queen. And when it comes to SEO, no one wants to read crappy content. You wanna read good content on a site that does not annoy you, all right? So make sure that your website is well optimized. You want to user experience matters. Make sure that the navigation of your website is intuitive. People can easily go from one page to another and discover more content and stay engaged and be excited by it, right? Create high quality content that people want to share and send to their friends. Create content that people want to link to. Links are so, so, so important, because the more links to your website that sit on the web, the more Google knows, oh, this person has something good to say. We need to send people their way. Because that is what link juice is. And link juice is all about and even in your website, connect the different pages of your website. If you have a page where you're talking about your design philosophy, link to another page where you go deeper and show examples of your design philosophy at play, right? So link within your website, and the more you create this interconnectivity within the content of your website, the more others are going to link to it. And that's really a powerful tool for you to be able to make sure that you are creating great content, getting shared, and getting people engaged. So those are all really key things that I would love, love, love for you to remember as you're playing and thinking about your SEO. So now let's talk, before we go into Q&A, I wanted to make sure I leave 15 minutes for Q&A. Before we go into Q&A, I want you to think about how you can measure success. Okay, so this is everyone always wants just an answer of like, how do I measure success? And I will say that context matters. Okay, so one of the things that people will sometimes say to me is, hey, so I did everything you told me to, and like my website visitors went down. What's going on? And what I will often say is, well, what about your conversion rate? Is your conversion rate better? And typically for most people, what we realize is when you have these, like a lot of visitors, but you're realizing that people aren't just converting, they're like coming to your website and leaving all of a sudden, right? Which is kind of the bounce rate, is like you land on a site and you leave. You don't go anywhere else on the site. Well, when you have a really high bounce rate and you have a lot of visitors, we know that maybe the content that you're optimizing for, the keywords you're optimizing for, are just not hitting the mark for your customers or for the people that are finding you. So you may see initially that the number of visitors coming to your site decline, and that's okay, as long as you're seeing that that bounce rate is also coming down and that your conversion rate is increasing. When you're trying to measure success for SEO, you're going to go into Google Analytics and you're going to look at how your organic traffic is performing. That is the main concept that you want to look at, your organic traffic. How are they performing? And so if your organic traffic is, your conversion rate is increasing and maybe your visitors decrease or increase, but your bounce rate is going down, we know that you are doing a good job. So that is important to remember, is you want your conversion rate to continue to increase, and conversion can look different for different people, right? So some people will say, well, conversion rate for e-commerce is easy to measure. How do I measure it for my design business? And a conversion rate could be, are people reaching you, connecting with you more through your website? Are they contacting you through your website? Are they booking appointments with you through your website? Those are all ways to measure conversion rate for you as a business, as a service provider. That's how I measure success for my own business as well. Okay, because I also am a service provider. Bounce rate is important, especially as a service provider, because typically people do a lot of shopping around. Okay. And you want to make sure that like whatever content is driving them, it's keeping them on your site and it's keeping them engaged. So that's how you know that, okay, I am targeting the right people with my content. You know, clearly they are my customer and they're spending time on my website. So I am therefore potentially targeting my target audience. So that's really important to make sure you're looking at. Okay. So before we go into Q&A, I just want to let everyone know, you know, I'm doing a webinar special. I do these with any of my webinars. So if you want to book a 60-minute strategy consultation, I'll answer any questions you have specific to your business. Feel free to book one with me. My URL is bit.ly/chat-with-OneBreathe. Pretty easy. So feel free to reach out and I'm happy to connect with anyone who wants to just get some questions answered about their marketing strategy. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's dive into questions. How about we do that? All right, I'm gonna pull up the chat. Okay. Yes, so there's a question about getting a copy of the slide deck. We can definitely, yes, I will be sending an email out and I think we're going to be doing a recording and all that good stuff. So yes, we will figure that out. Do not worry. Okay. Do you want me to just lead the questions? Will you be coordinating with, are you going to read the questions to me? What do you think is the best way, friend? Oh, okay, cool. I can read the ones I want to address. Sounds good. Awesome. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to just scroll up because I want to make sure that I know that people have been asking things. Okay, so is it enough to optimize image sizes in Photoshop or should I use tiny PNG instead? So at the end of the day, it's about making sure the size of the image itself is smaller. The reason I use tiny PNG is I can do Photoshop. I just find it, I'm slower in Photoshop than probably many of you are. So that's the reason I use tiny PNG. I also think the reason I like tiny PNG is it doesn't ruin the resolution size. And I've noticed some people when they're doing Photoshop, they've had issues with resolution. So yes, it is totally cool. If you want to use Photoshop, you can totally use Photoshop. It's not mandatory to use tiny PNG. It's just a tool I like, so I enjoy recommending it. Okay. Yes, the name of the tool is Tiny PNG, since that was a question. Okay. Okay, does adding your Instagram feed to your site help with your SEO? What are your thoughts on this? Awesome question. So, you know, I will say that it does not help with your SEO per se. It's a great, I mean, okay. So the thing with any content that you're creating is you want to maximize that content, right? So if you have a very active Instagram and you think that it's going to help with your customers understanding your brand and business, totally put it on the website. It's not going to really affect your SEO. The thing about Instagram that I tell everyone is, so for example, with like Instagram is not going to necessarily send a lot of links over that are, you know, that are not send as many links over to your website unless people go and they click into your product, or if you have product tagging set up on your site, on your Instagram. Adding it onto your website, it's not going to make a huge difference, but it does add an interconnectivity between telling people the associations between your accounts. So I do recommend that in the sense of it's nice to be able to also then tell the search engine, like, this account is directly correlated to my business and this is the website. So not a bad idea. It's not going to do a lot of, it's not going to drastically improve your SEO. It's also not going to hurt your SEO. Okay, is it important to have Google Analytics installed to see how your SEO is working? Yes. So like Shopify and Squarespace and WordPress, they have their own analytics. But to really, really dig deep and really understand the impact of your SEO, I highly, highly recommend setting up Google Analytics on your website. If you're going to do a huge SEO revamp, before you start your revamp, get your analytics in order. What about adding links to documents? Does this scare users? I'm not exactly sure about that question. So if someone wants to, if you want to clarify, please feel free to put it into the chat. Okay. Can you please describe what is conversion rate exactly and what is bounce rate exactly? Sure. So conversion rate is essentially using of the number of people that come to your website, what percentage of them take the desired action that you want them to take. So if your desired action is people scheduling an appointment with you, or if your desired action is people buying a product, then your conversion rate is of the person that visit your website, how many actually take that action, how many actually schedule, how many actually buy. Bounce rate is essentially people coming to your site and like you click on a link and then you leave that link right away. You leave the website right away. That is a bounce rate. That is people coming, they don't care, like right when they enter, they were like, ooh, not what I'm looking for, and they X out and leave. That is a bounce rate. That would be a high bounce rate when you see a lot of people coming onto your website and they leave right away. The other question I've had is, what do you consider a high bounce rate? Honestly, it's going to be industry dependent. You can always Google and see like, what is the industry that you're in and what is the bounce rate? I tend to get really wary of bounce rates that are at all above. Well, I mean, it really does depend on industry. I get really wary right when they start going above 40%. Yeah. Okay, can you put the link to contact you in the chat? Oh, the link for contacting me. Yes, let me put that in the chat. 1 second. bit.ly. Oh. /chat with Manpreet. Awesome. Okay, that's there. All right. I see we have a few more minutes. Okay. Okay. For a small company with zero budget for SEO, what would you say is the most important thing to tackle first? Oh, yeah. Great question. I would say if I had to pick the first thing, I would say make sure that you have a good user experience for your website. You can do all the optimization in the world, but if your website itself is just not functional, that's not going to do anything. So really invest in your user experience. This is so, so, so important. Yeah. Do you have an opinion about Squarespace and SEO? Yeah, so I use Squarespace for my website. I have not had any issues with Squarespace SEO. I think Squarespace's SEO has gotten a lot better. Yeah, so I would say Squarespace's SEO has gotten a lot better over time. And I would say that there's no reason that I would necessarily say I have a problem with it. One thing I will say is if you sell products, Squarespace's SEO really sucks. There's no other way to put it. So you cannot put in, at least this is, I haven't looked in the last 6 months, so this may have changed, but I had created a product site with SEO, with Squarespace. And for me to input SEO for each individual page, I had to basically create a coding hack to do that because it doesn't have it natively built in. So that's one of the things just to remember is that Squarespace, if you have actual product pages, their SEO is not the best. Squarespace is a content website. I just want everyone to remember that, right? So if you are an e-commerce business, I usually recommend, with a decent size inventory, I usually recommend Shopify. But if you're a content heavy, a design consulting firm, etc., Squarespace is great and you're good. Okay. All right. Okay. Ooh, this one's a really good question. And I think I want to make sure we leave with this one, is if you've recently switched your host site, i.e. switching your URL from Shopify to Squarespace and lost your ranking on Google, is there a way to get it back? Oh, okay. So this is a great question. And I think that I'm so glad you asked this because it's really important that everyone recognize. So one of the things to make sure that you are being thoughtful about is if you are ever switching your website platform, or if you're even ever changing a URL of your existing website, you have to set up redirects. If you do not set up redirects, you are going to have a bunch of broken links, and broken links are only going to hurt your SEO. Do not have broken links. So make sure if you're ever switching over your website, you create redirects to the new links of your website. And that is incredibly important. So anytime you're making a website switch, if you're working with someone and they did not do that, that is ridiculous to me. You have to make sure that you have redirects set up. That is the only way. And it's incredibly important to recognize that, if broken links, period, are only going to do a lot of harm to your site. So make sure that if you're ever changing a URL, you set up a redirect, basically saying if someone searches this old URL, they are sent to this new URL. And all platforms allow for that to happen. So just please make sure that you do that. I think we are out of time. Am I correct to assume that? Or do we have time for another question? Just want to make sure I check in with the Business of Home team. Oh, we've got 4 more minutes. Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you. I wasn't sure if we wanted to let people go just a bit early if they had to get somewhere. Okay, great. So, okay, so I'm going to see what some of these other questions are. Okay, for getting design or look of a site, compare the SEO with a custom nice WordPress site versus a Squarespace template site. Again, SEO is not just your title tag and meta description. SEO is the whole user experience. You cannot forget design. You cannot forget the user experience. You have to remember that SEO is about more than your title tag or meta description or the keywords. It is about the content. So whatever you put in, the user experience you generate, that look and feel, the engagement that you create on your website, those all impact how likely those all impact your SEO. Okay, because they're going to impact how likely people are to actually stay on your website and engage with the content of your website. Okay. Let's see. Okay, how often does Google change your ranking compared to other vendors? So I don't like to think of it as a vendors basis thing. I will say that at this point, we all know that like Google is one of the most searched search engines. So really like a lot of the conversations for years now when it comes to SEO have been around Google and making sure that you are optimizing for Google. So as far as how often they change, Google's algorithm is constantly crawling. It can take a little bit of time. I usually say a good rule of thumb is give your website like 3 months before you start looking for like exact results and start looking at analytics. Like you want to have check-ins, right? So say you did a big giant SEO overhaul of your whole website. check in 3 months, check in 6 months. This is a long game. This is not a short game. So if you are looking for immediate results, SEO is not what you're looking at. But SEO is so critical because it's a long game and it's going to drive consistent results over time. So SEO is a very important aspect of your business, and it's important. It's incredibly important to think about, especially as, you know, with COVID and everything, more and more people are primarily using websites and online to find the resources that they want. They already were, and now it's even more. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is it a bad idea to host my blog on my website, or should I use a more popular blog site? I don't seem to get any SEO from my website blog. Okay, so again, I think it's important to make sure that if you're creating content on totally ready to sign off. So make sure that you're always optimizing any content you create. If you feel that you would be doing better, it's totally fine to go on another site, but make sure you're always linking to your site. Otherwise, you're not going to get the benefit of creating blog content. Okay, so I think that is the last question I can take. Thank you all for joining, and I hope you found this session valuable. Thank you, thank you. All right, everyone. Yeah, of course. Thank you, thank you.